Oh, Sean was kicked out for some reason. So was Patty. Weird. Okay, so today we're meeting to talk about some of the positives of remote learning. We all know it's been a struggle, and we are now, what are we, 6 weeks in? 7 weeks in? I don't even know. I've lost track of time at this point. But I started hearing from some teachers and educators about some of the interesting and maybe surprising positives that have happened through this. And it made me want to know more. It made me want to hear more about that and see what others were seeing in it. And actually came out, people responded to my email and gave me a lot of really good feedback. So I'm going to share that document. Hold on. And you can look at that. And if you're watching the YouTube channel on this, I'll share it in the description. I just put that in the chat. So today we have a few people who have responded to my email that were also willing to come and share their golden nuggets with you all. We have Courtney from Proctor Elementary. Alina and Sarah are from Proctor High School. Our Pennington is at West Rutland. Patti Thomas, she's an OT for our SU. Scott Holloman might be jumping in here, but he had a little bit of a conflict of time. He is at Pulteney High School. And then we have Katina, and you're at Pulteney Elementary, right? Okay, so I guess I'm going to turn it over to, is there someone that would like to go first? Or should I call? All right, I'm going to just call. So I'm going to go down my list. So Courtney, you're the first one on my list.
All right, I'll start. So I think the positive so far that's come out of remote learning is we've had a few. I've been in contact a lot with the parents over these last couple of weeks and just asking them to tell me their feedback on the whole process, what's working, what's not working, how can I help you and your child better. So I think the biggest positive feedback I've gotten from parents is organization is important to them at the elementary level. So how as teachers we can support their children to be independent and support their children to kind of be able to go through their assignments and things on their own and have that direct contact with the teacher and kind of take the pressure off of the parent to teach the child. So that's been important to them. And then the positive that I've seen over the last couple of weeks is, so I do morning meeting 3 times a week from 9:30 to 10. And I have the majority of my class show up every single time. And it's not academic. We don't really incorporate a lot of academics into it unless like it's through a game. But it's mostly just like checking in with each other, playing a game together. On Fridays, we do a bigger activity like a scavenger hunt or a talent show, things like that. And I think that's just been really positive for kids to have that time to come together and to meet and to take academics out of it. And I think the positive that we can kind of remember from this whole experience is that we have a whole child that we need to teach. In remote learning, it's very easy to kind of just be like, oh, assignment, 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 and forget that there's a child we're pushing that work out to, and kind of keeping that in that back of your head of how are we fostering those positive relationships and how are we still working during this time to work on those. And I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway I've had from this is that even when the child's not face-to-face, they're still craving that relationship. They're still craving that community. And how can we give them that chance to still continue to work and build on that?
Yeah, I like that. I like that because I think it's like teaching is only one component. Like the actual act of teaching is only one component of a student's learning ability, and that the community part and the relationship building is just as important. And if those relationships aren't there, it's so much harder to keep the momentum going. It's a really good point. Has anybody else noticed that? The relationship building piece being super, super important.
Erica,
Yeah.
this is Patti. Oh,
Hi, Patti.
hi. I can speak to that as a parent.
Oh, good.
First, and also as an OT. So my daughter's 18. She has special needs. Sadly, this time of year where the quarantine started, is unified basketball, and that is her time to shine. And she completely missed the entire season. They had one practice, and then it was full stop. And she was really down in the dumps, like just despondent, really depressed. And her coach called a meeting of the an online, like Google Hangout of the unified basketball team. And I kind of get weepy talking about it because this person did not have to do this, by the way. That was just out of the goodness of their heart. 45 minutes later of just interacting with peers, and we had our kid back. We had a new kid who was connected. So yes, the basketball is important, but it just is. I mean, there's so much to be learned from that one little 45-minute session, which now is a regular thing because it was so great for all the kids, including the non-special ed peers who also come regularly. And we got our kid back, like just because of that connection piece.
I know Cindy wrote in here, she also emphasizes that yes, it is so important, and even more so in this type of environment, even though it's a little bit more trickier because you don't see them every day, but trying to those creative ways. A lot of you are keeping in contact with your kids through websites that you're building and Facebook groups that you've made and the flip grids and the meetings and it's so interactive. And I feel like I'm noticing a lot of interactive learning versus passive learning. And that's what a lot of people's fear was about going online and remote learning. Well, remote learning doesn't mean it has to be digital all the time. That's just the delivery of the information, but you can do things very interactive and then share your experience in the digital environment and as well interact in the digital environment. So that's awesome. And do you have anything else to share, Courtney?
No, that was really it. Is that for the parents' feedback is that it's been organization is a big thing for parents and helping to support them by having everything in one space and not having them go to separate things. And then for me, the biggest positive has just been that community building and that fact that those kids keep showing up time after time to see me, to see their peers, to have those conversations. And yesterday we did like an optional one in the afternoon at like 2:00, like that they had earned through a dojo reward, and like 10 of them still showed up at 2:00 in the afternoon and played a Kahoot and had a great time. So it's just nice to see those community building pieces falling back into place.
Yep. And studies about online learning and show that the community piece, the interaction with the teacher and the professor and the professor's or the teacher's presence is so important to the motivation of the student and is actually a factor as to whether the students will complete the course or not. So it is such a huge piece that is often overlooked. Think about like some of the online courses you've taken that you didn't have very well interaction with teachers, and then the online courses you've taken where the teacher's very involved. It is a totally different feeling. And I think you guys are knocking it out of the park. Okay, let's move on down to, well, we're going to stay in Proctor. So we'll go to Alina or Sarah.
Sure, I'll go next. So for those of you who don't know, I teach high school science, and I have seen, obviously, yes, this is very challenging, but I've seen quite a few different things, and I'm looking over at my other screen because I jotted down my notes because I have a little list. So one is, again, with the relationship building piece. When we're in person, like I know myself, I'm an extrovert. A lot of teachers do tend to be extroverts. We kind of get drawn to that in the profession, but there's also tons of kids and teachers who are introverts. Being in this environment has allowed me to connect with my introverted students more deeply than when we're in the classroom because of the amount of extra one-on-one time that we can have, where I can really get to know them and their interests more, because in the classroom, they're less likely to speak up. They'll participate the amount that they need to, but when it comes to some of their personal things, they're not going to share it as much. Whereas one of my very shy introverted students gave me an entire tour of her gecko terrarium in her room the other day, which was awesome, and like let me get to know a whole new animal loving side of her, which was really cool. Another piece I put down was that again, with that kind of one-on-one piece there, though it's still a lot and it's still challenging, the one-on-one sessions that I'm able to do with struggling students or with students who have accommodations and need different types of lessons and whatnot, they've actually been extremely successful with that, and they're actually making bigger gains in some areas now than when we're in the regular classroom, because I can give them so much more one-on-one time than when I have a room with 15 kids. I can't spend that much time one-on-one with each of them, whereas now the faster learners can fly through things as fast as I can post them, and the ones who need more individual instruction, I can actually give that to them now, which is pretty cool. Another one, anyone else who works with high schoolers or probably more middle schoolers don't have to deal with classroom management right now, so that's kind of nice. Even when we're doing group meets, it's just so different. And I'm not doing ones with an entire class at once. I'm doing them in smaller groups. So it's been very easy to manage. And then kids who easily get distracted by their peers are getting their work done more efficiently because they don't have their peers right next to them to chat with the whole class period. So they're actually getting their work done faster. I'm also having more contact with parents. Though I've been sending out more stuff, I've seen also increased amounts of parents reaching out to me, which has been an awesome experience, because normally when I send out something to all of the parents of my students, I'll get the same couple of people will reply. Now those same people reply, but I'm also getting extra replies from parents I don't normally hear from, which is great. And finally, I put down that I also have more time to talk to colleagues because our schedules are so much more open and flexible. So when there are student issues, it's easier for us to set up a meeting right away to try and address it, rather than have to find a space where we have common prep or we're all available after school. It's just so much easier to schedule things right now around all of those types of things that we normally want to be able to meet about. It's easier to do now. So that was my list. Believe me, I'm definitely still struggling, but I'm trying to focus on those positives to carry my momentum through to the end of whenever this ends.
That's really great. I like that it's like giving you more time to reach those students who needed the more time, whether you knew it or not, to be able to work better. And I've heard that from other people. Has anyone else felt that they've had a little bit more time to reach those students who need you, just because of the way we send out the work in like a kind of like a weekly or unit chunking? Yeah, I see some thumbs up and head nodding. I have noticed that. And I like that you're talking about the introverted students, but then you also kind of mentioned the extroverted ones, the ones that are too like distracted by the social piece and really interacting with each other, and how taking that distraction away has made them focus more. And I've heard that from a couple of people actually, which is interesting. Does anybody have anything to comment about what all that Alina said, or can relate to or share?
I mean, I work in the same building as Alina, and we share a lot of the same students. And I'm seeing some similar things to what she's seeing. But additionally, the thing that's been really cool for me is that some of my kids who would normally just kind of sit in the classroom and be passive and have a question, but wait for somebody else to ask it, or just wait for me to notice that they're not doing anything and go find out what's going on, they've been reaching out through Google Chats to get help like right away as soon as they have a question. So I'm seeing a lot higher quality work from them, and it's getting done in a more timely manner because they're not just like, they can't just wait for somebody else to figure it out for them. They have to do it. So that's been kind of cool as well.
Yeah. And do you see that your kids are figuring out how to use their resources more efficiently
Oh, yeah.
than before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some of them are still asking for some of the same hand-holding that they do before, but I'm able to kind of anticipate where they're going to need more help and post extra resources. So some of them are still needing a lot of extra support, but a lot of them are able to kind of be more independent through that, which is cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Do you have anything else to add that you've noticed?
I don't remember what else I sent you. I think the other thing is I'm seeing some of the, like my freshmen especially, have a weird mindset about school, and they would like rush through assignments in class. And as soon as one person was finished with something, they would all kind of stop working on it no matter where they were. So they would give me a lot of incomplete work. And I'm seeing now that they're not paying attention to what each other are doing. They're actually completing their assignments, which is nice.
Yeah, that is nice. That's a perk.
Yeah.
They get their work done.
And
Yeah.
I actually also looked back at my list, and another piece that I had kind of forgotten before is that it partly goes with them, kind of like what Sarah's saying, being more efficient and completing things more. I wasn't expecting this, but I actually now have less students who have like missing work or are behind than when we're in normal school. I mean, partly we're giving less work now than we do when we're in school, but the less work that I'm giving them, they're taking seriously and getting it done. Not always when I put my like tentative due dates on, but they ultimately are getting it done. So like I am astounded because I thought it was going to be a lot harder, like pulling teeth. You know, there's always a couple who, even in this environment, like it is like pulling teeth to get them to engage. That's just the case, especially, you know, I've got juniors and seniors. Some of the seniors are checked out. They're just done at this point. But even then, they're still like, okay, what's the minimum I have to do? Let's just get it done. So there's less behind students than when we're in school.
Are you also noticing an improvement in quality? Like now that they don't have so much work, are they doing better work on the assignments that you are posting?
Yes. It kind of depends on what it is. Some of the classes, like I teach chemistry and AP biology, like those classes, like they're challenging. So, but rather than turn in a poorly done quiz, if they look at the quiz and they know they can't figure it out, rather than try and just like copy a peer or see if they can like do something else weird or stupid, they're just saying like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And they're sending me a message, and then we can do a video chat and go over the quiz together before they complete it. So in the end, it is actually ending up better quality work because we've just gone over it together before they complete it. And then the other piece with that kind of goes right along with that is because the parents are, in a lot of cases, their parents are checking in on like their jump rope a lot more often. They want to make sure that they don't have things as missing on jump rope. So they've been more proactive than they are when they're at school. Because some of my kids' parents only check jump rope like at the quarters and that's it. So in between, they don't feel as much pressure, but now that they know their parents are checking it more frequently, they're much more on top of getting their stuff done in a timely manner. So that's been pretty cool and helpful.
That is interesting. So it's like, it comes down to that kind of what I'm thinking of, like that breadth versus depth kind of thing, since we've had to slow down. Like we literally can't pile on too much. It's given kids a little bit more opportunity to dive a little deeper into the subject matter. And it looks like you being able to have, like, having more access to you, having more time to work through things, and parental involvement, like some super key components.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, another example, my applied chemistry elective class, normally we do a ton of really hands-on stuff. So I'm very bummed that I have to miss out on that with them. But I did have them do a project where they all made infographics of the chemistry of their favorite food. And I left it pretty, like I gave them some guidelines of things to think about and some basics to include. But other than that, I left it really up to them to how they went about it. And I got some amazingly adorable infographics about things, you know, like mac and cheese and pizza and strawberry jam. One kid did cotton candy. So it was really cute to see what they came up with, and they used some different platforms. I had one kid try and tell me that he didn't have Google Draw on his Chromebook. So we had to, you know, like learn how to get to Google Draw and how to use it. And then once we did, it was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty easy and pretty cool. So that was a cool quasi new experience for them. Instead of making a physical poster, they did a digital poster. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much. So I have next on my list, we're going to go down to Barb. She's 6th grade.
Hi, everyone. So for me, yes, the community building, all of that, I'll just ditto that. But the biggest takeaway for me is I've learned a lot of new technology that I haven't had a chance to learn in the past, and things I've wanted to use in the regular classroom, but I feel like there's never time during, you know, the normal school year. But I've learned a lot of tools that I'm planning on using, you know, obviously not to this extent, but when we do get back to the physical classroom, I am planning on using, you know, some of the tools that I have learned here. Also, it's kind of an eye-opening experience, some skills that I'll be needing to teach to future students should something like this ever happen again, like how do you send an email? I never thought I had to teach that, but some students, they are writing their whole message in the subject line or no subject and their subject, and, you know, so just kind of realizing some different things that we need to teach in the, you know, to our students. Also like with Google Chat, you know, things that I just assumed they would know how to use, but I'm learning that those are skills that maybe we should be teaching. Some other things, this kind of goes back to the social emotional piece, but every morning we do a Flipgrid message, and they're mostly, you know, a prompt, and a lot of them are, you know, more casual topics. Like, for example, the one I set for tomorrow morning is, what good movie recommendations do you have for us? Or we've done things where they share something from their house or family or whatever. So I'm learning a whole lot more about my students that I didn't know up until this point. Oh, and I can go to the bathroom whenever I want.
I was hoping you'd say that one. I know a lot of you can relate to that.
That's all I can think of for now.
And you made me think of like you made a really good point, like that the things that you're noticing that are pluses, that you're working with your students are things that you're going to continue even when you go back to the classroom. So like you're learning all these new skills and these new strategies and new ways of like communicating with students or reaching students or delivering content. And I think a lot of you are saying like, oh, I like this way better. I still want to see my face-to-face. Yes, we do. Right. But that this has opened up an opportunity for learning about other new tools and ways of.
Right, I'm learning a whole lot more about tools. Well, we had to, so but I'm embracing it. That's all I can do it.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like in our SU, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a little blinded by it, but I feel like most people in our SU seem like we've gotten over this massive hurdle. Those first couple of weeks were really, really, really hard. And now people are kind of into a groove, and I feel like there's a level of comfort. I'm not getting as many coaching calls at all, where the first couple of weeks it was like I couldn't keep up. And I'm wondering what you are feeling, those of you who are on this call. Are you noticing like things are feeling a little more comfortable, like there's a good flow, you're feeling more positive about it? I see some nodding, a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I've definitely started to get a routine going, and that's helping a lot.
Yeah. Cindy wrote, I am feeling better. I have got a lot of support. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still continuing to try different things because my original plans for myself in the digital environment were too ambitious. And so I've had to scale back my plans a lot because I realized that my goal was to put out a like beautifully done digital learning experience that people normally take a couple of years to create,
Yep.
and that I was never going to be able to accomplish that and get sleep. So I've been changing that. So kind of each week I've been like kind of dialing it back and figuring out what really makes sense for me and the kids. And
Yeah.
I've been in regular contact with the kids about that. Like, is this working for you? What could I do better? Hey, I'm going to try this. What do you guys think about it? And they're so awesome. They're just like, yeah, do whatever you got to do. And
That's awesome.
the fact that they don't have an assignment every single day now, they're like, yeah.
Yes. It lets them relax a little. Okay, moving on. I got Patti Thomas. She's next on my list.
So I think what I have to say echoes a lot of what's already been said. For me, working mostly with kids with special needs, I think going back to the connection piece, like in the beginning, I actually have parents who have kids with pretty significant needs, and the thought of being home without support and taking care of those kids who require one-to-one attention 24/7, maybe not 24, maybe they sleep at night, maybe they don't though, was very overwhelming. And so even just some online time with a mom who maybe one parent was working outside of the house, one is a single parent, even just that connection for the parent was intensely important. And also just understanding from a family-centered care approach, which is definitely an occupational therapy concept, but what does the family need? What does the child need in the context of the family environment? And how can I have, kids, I'm online with kids who have other siblings at home. And so helping parents find a balance between working with a child with significant needs, plus still making sure their other kids are getting, the attention that they need. My analogy is, I think the whole thing segueing into my next point was I'm seeing a huge uptake in offers for support with assistive technology because it's not really optional right now. It's a need. And so I call that the equivalent of like when you're learning a new language, you immerse yourself. So it's the immersion model of technology. Like it's all you can do because you have to do it. And so just feeling, and for myself included, like I have had kids that I've wanted to get technologies up and running for, and I just had not really taken the time to do it, not making excuses, but like everybody else, time gets away from us. And so really stepping up my game in that respect has been great. And so I have found some silver linings, but I also cannot wait to get back to school and see kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that's true. Barb writes, also lots of websites that normally have a paid subscription you can get for free right now. That's right. Use it, you guys. Most of them are to the end of the year, and who knows about next year. And I also think Patti pointed out kind of an interesting thing. At least in my mind, it popped up as being interesting as she talked about the connection and the family involvement being so important, and that a lot of people think that the issue with equity in online learning is our technology. And I don't think that's the issue in our district. We made sure all of our kids are connected in some way, and are trying to make sure that everyone has access to devices. And I think where the equity piece comes in is like the family home, the home life, the family involvement. And that is, like, as we all know, that is an impossible thing to deal with. And I think this forces those families to be more in contact with the teachers and has more access to the educator and the school. And sometimes it's intimidating. You come from a family that the parents may not have had a very good experience in school, and they never felt comfortable being there and being involved. And now this opens up an opportunity for them to feel comfortable. All right, we're running over time a little bit, but I want to give Katina a little bit of time to speak because she had some good nuggets as well. Hi, Katina.
Hi, hopefully my mic turns on. Let's see. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I agree with a lot of what everyone's saying, and I totally agree about justifying the new tech that we could all have the time to use now and the ability to use and the free subscriptions to use, which was huge. And then a lot of my positives have to do with me, not necessarily with the kids or anything, but I have hot coffee, my second cup, and it's still warm and it's amazing. And my commute is the best. I moved away from my home district or from my school district, and I've found a new house, and my commute is still even shorter. So that's really awesome. And I just have a couple of kiddos that I didn't expect them to shine, and they really have. So that just makes me so proud of them and happy for them that they can do that. And then Erica, I really appreciate this opportunity that gives us a chance to be positive, because a lot of times it's hard to be positive about all of this without feeling really guilty. So it's been really nice to think about positive things and not be guilty about it.
You're welcome. I also I feel like the media is always just filled with like the difficulties of online learning, and parents are fed up, and it just seems like it's all negative when we all know sitting here that it's not all negative, that some really good things are coming out of it. It's not ideal still, but a lot of these things you are noticing or, trying out or adapting are things that you can take back to the classroom with you and do it face to face as well. Am I right? Like, a lot of this is pretty transferable, and it's just giving you the opportunity to take the time to be able to learn. I mean, as educators, you don't have the time to sit down and during the day to meet like this. Like, we won't be able to do lunch and learns when we're back in school because everybody has a different lunch schedule. So I don't even know how I would do that, but whatever. Does anybody else have anything that maybe didn't email me back? Yeah, Patty says, I had no idea how useful Google Slides are. Google Slides is pretty amazing. You can make posters. You can do a lot of really cool stuff in Google Slides. You're right. What else? Does anybody else want to have any quick nugget they want to share? I see Sean's on here. I know you emailed back. You made a really cute website. Yeah, she's preschool and I'm pretty impressed with the way you've taken up the technology to keep up with your kids and to showcase what they're doing.
While we've been chatting, I actually thought of another potential positive piece. At the high school level, Corey Valley is looking at having more distance learning and asynchronous classes available to increase elective opportunities for high school shared across the 3 high schools. And I was tentatively before all of the closure, I was tentatively thinking about doing a distance learning physics class, but I was really nervous about it because I haven't done something like that before. Because of all of the unknowns, we are still kind of holding off on that for next year, but I now feel so much more comfortable because of the amount of tools and things I've tried and things that I see that I'm like, oh yeah, I could absolutely do this. And especially knowing that I'll have this extra time to play with, like I'm continuing to try and practice stuff, and with my current physics class of like trying this, so that as I eventually am able to offer that in the future, and I can think about other science classes as well that would work well in a digital environment like this. So yeah, that's just, it's awesome. It's forcing us to try the stuff we'll need to do anyway to do the the distance learning classes.
Yeah, and I think it's changing our view, because I've been informed about all of this happening, and we did a little bit of a pilot this year. The way that they defined distance learning was live streaming a class, which is not the same. Like, it's not the same at all. And I think I'm hopeful that this will kind of change their perspective of what distance learning is, and that live streaming a class is, not really the best ideal situation. But to set up an environment like this where you set out weekly modules, let kids navigate at their own pace, kind of thing, where they have access to you for appointments and things like that. But
yeah, well, and then, but I mean, even stuff like the community building things we've talked about, one of the pieces that made me nervous, because I've done physics classes before where West Rutland students have driven over and taken them at Proctor. And I know we've had Proctor students drive over and take classes at West Rutland because we're still fairly close. When Polteny joined us, they're a little further away, so that becomes way less feasible. So then it was like, okay, well, how would we do this? When I've had students physically come, I can still build that relationship with them. And I was worried if we were going to do a completely digital environment and I don't have any interpersonal time with the kids, like, how would I build those relationships? So right now I have existing relationships that I'm just feeding off of, but learning all of these strategies through this experience with kids I already know makes me feel better about being able to establish relationships in a purely digital environment. If we were to do that down the road of, like, we could do things like weekly meets all together for, 15 minutes as a class to do different types of activities. And then also, so we could do that combination of asynchronous and some synchronous so that we can still do the community building pieces. So it makes it feel better.
Yep. And there's studies out there that show, and I can share them with you if people want, that the blended learning environment is more effective than 100% face-to-face or 100% asynchronous remote. So I think what you guys, even though we're 100% remote, you are blending synchronous and asynchronous and using the synchronous, meaning the live face-to-face real time, to build those relationships while allowing kids to asynchronously navigate through their learning at the pace that suits them the best. So it is a very student-centered model if you look at it that way. And there's data out there that shows that blended learning model is much more effective than fully face-to-face or fully asynchronously online. So, all right. Wow, we're way over time. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you sticking through this long lunch and learn, but I thought it was very interesting. You gave us a lot of really good things to think about. And I'm looking forward to more of these conversations. So thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.